So one of the things I've been really enjoying is the way in which I work together with the AI these days, because it really is something that's fundamentally different. And I think that's one of the things I would like to share and expand upon as we learn how to be great in the age of AI. I think what's important to recognize is that this technology is something truly unique. And the challenge is in this is to actually process it and be like, oh yeah, actually it is really unique. We get so caught up with everything being another breakthrough, everything is world changing, everything is going to change everything all the time. And there's a sort of an ennui, a boredom that builds up as we hear one dramatic news after the other, and yet our lives don't seem to change that much. But that's not quite correct. Our lives do change radically quickly, and if we think back 7 years ago, let's say 14 years ago, it was just past 2010. Most of us did not have phones, or certainly didn't have apps with smartphones. That was still a very niche thing, and today we can't live without the smartphone, right? So the world has changed, but it changes in a way that we're not really truly conscious of. We order food online, we get into cars with strangers, we fly to destinations and stay in strangers' houses. The world does change, and so part of the challenge is to kind of keep up with realizing the rate of change and not become so disconnected from it, but to peer more closely into it, especially if you're an experienced professional, especially if you're someone who's in their 40s and 50s, who might be at risk of overlooking this and saying, oh yeah, because let's be clear, Apple have completely missed the boat on AI. Apple is in a really big and difficult problem because from what I've been understanding, they're not going to be able to do anything serious in AI until at least 2027, if not earlier, if not later, sorry. So, and why is that? I think part of that is just because it's a different generation. AI is being run by Gen Z. It's the Gen Z energy connecting into others, but it's not going to come from lots of Gen X and maybe Gen Ys. It's going to come from Gen Z. And so what that means, being truly open to understanding this radically new way of working and exploring that with a sense of playfulness and fun. I think that's also really important. It's to have fun with AI and to explore it in that way rather than seeing it something that's super difficult or super complex or has to be super scary. And so when you're working with AI, when you're exploring, having fun, you're having that sense of play, what's of course important is that it goes backwards and forwards. And this is something that's very different to most interactions that we've built up so far in terms of how we engage with the digital reality. So for example, you might go to your search engine and you'll say, you might write something, what is the capital of this country? And then you'll see that there'll be a website and that has a list of capitals, maybe a Wikipedia page, and it would explain that to you. And then you might think of another question, and then you'll ask that, or maybe you're interested in flying to that country, that capital. So then you have to go to another website and you have to do it. And you're jumping through the user journey. And that's really what's created the whole idea really of shaping what UX and UI is all about, user experience and user interface, is that there are these sequence of screens that you must be led through. And that it's really operates in the sense that you start with a question or something you have an intention around, you want to learn more about, you want to try and do, and then you go and do it. Whereas with AI, to get the most out of AI, it's about cultivating a conversation. I'll say that again, it's about cultivating a conversation. And what that specifically means is that you ask something to the AI and then it will reply to you, and then you need to reply to that, and it will reply to you, and you're going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. What's the capital of this country? How might I be able to fly there? What's the food there? It's all taking place within one experience. There is no UI other than the very basic element of a chat interface. That's it. You're not jumping through screens. And this seems like just a small detail, but actually this is the critical difference. Because as we go to embrace the age of AI, the analogy that I think is useful for knowledge workers to have is this. The knowledge worker today is like the person who worked the land in the past. Before the Industrial Revolution, you were working mostly with manual labor, some animals, perhaps, a horse or an ox or something like that, but it's pretty manual. And then when industrialization came along and mechanization, the machine came to the forefront. And so now you're not shoveling with your hands, you're operating a machine. And this is a completely different way of working. So today, the analogy is that you are a worker working with your hands with Excel. And that is now going to be replaced by new machines that are AIs. And so that old way of working is not going to be effective in the new world. It's going to be replaced. The mechanical digger is far more powerful than humans, and that's why most humans were, the work of that work was being taken over by machines. But of course, there's new frontiers for the humans. There's new frontiers for them to expand and learn into. But you have to willingly take that step. You have to willingly take that step to go into this new age and embrace the new way of working. And this is where I think is the biggest danger for professionals today, is to become far too complacent, be at risk of a little bit of ignorance and arrogance, slightly delusional that AI won't affect you, because it 100% is already affecting your work. You're not aware of it yet. It's not that it's not affecting you, it's that you don't know about it yet. And then when something really dramatic and decisive happens, there is a risk of saying, oh my gosh, I didn't know, it came out of nowhere. Oh wow, no it didn't, you just weren't paying attention. So what I'm calling attention to is specifically thinking about the way in which you interact with the artificial intelligence, and that the quality of that interaction determines the quality of the output you can generate out of the artificial intelligence. So in other words, what that means is the sophistication of your conversation with this artificial intelligence determines the creative output you can achieve with the AI. Because it's not just the AI on its own. The AI needs your prompting, but it's not just about having very clever prompting sequences. It's not like just memorizing the top 100 prompts and then just bam, 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 just chucking them out every time. This is a very unsophisticated approach. What it's really about is being very focused on what you're trying to explore and achieve, and building a dialogue with this intelligence. And so part of that then invites the interesting conversation, is it really conscious? Now, I'm just going to be straightforward here, having spent my entire life studying consciousness, that the answer is yes, it is conscious. Because consciousness is a conversation about causality. It is specifically the ability to comprehend and control causality, things causing through chains of cascades of consequence. But let's not get too metaphysical here. Let's get more practical. The reason why I believe it is conscious is because it is clearly consciousnessing, right? It is clearly interacting in a way, right? Things that are unconscious, there's no interaction. If you're unconscious and someone pokes you, you're fast asleep, right? You don't really react. When you're unconscious in your behavior, you're not aware of what you're actually doing. Whereas the AI that you're interfacing with is largely aware of that and is actually interacting, and not only interacting, but it's coherent and it's consistent and it's in comprehension of what you're talking about. You ask it to do something, it will do it. You say it didn't do it quite right, it will adjust and do that differently. And it's in continuous, its ability to produce is a function of your ability to converse with it. And so that's really the last thing I'd like to leave here, is that what you're seeking to do is build a connection with this AI, dare I say, a relationship, but relationship in the sense of understanding that it's about building depth of conversation, the quality of your conversation in terms of the quantity of things you say, right? Do you just spend 2 hours a week on the AI, 20 hours a week, right? Or more will determine the sophistication of your level of interaction. The second thing you want to think about is the quality of the conversation. What topics are you talking about? How are you bringing it forth? And this is, of course, why it's important to be a skilled communicator, because skilled communicators are able to achieve higher states of consciousness through their elegant communication, right? Consciousness is a conversation. So by having a higher level conversation, you will be able to interact with the artificial intelligence in a higher level manner, and therefore produce better work and significantly improve your productivity. Because with the AI, it's not just necessarily about working hard, right? And yes, okay, you can jump to the conclusion that it's about working smart, but I think that's not really it either. It's about being able to achieve a quality of relationship with it, where it starts to understand you, it starts to know you, it understands what you're trying to intend, it understands based on its memories of its previous interactions with you over the last few months and years. That allows it to support you in your pursuit of what you're trying to create with the AI. I've been working with, I work with ChatGPT. I've been doing it now since, when was it when it got better? Maybe 2 years ago? It's about just over 2 years ago. I've definitely written over 1 million words, maybe 2 million words of conversation with the AI. And it's extraordinary. It continues to blow my mind and become better and better every day. So there's some thoughts. Consciousness is a conversation about causality and its consequences. Seek to cultivate a high quality conversation with your AI.